Two brand new Heroes free-to-play units, but how should you build their hidden potential? How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We're back for another Dokkan battle video. In today's video, we are taking a look at the INT female warrior in black and the STR EZA Towa, and trying to figure out what might be their best hidden potential build. These are two free-to-play units introduced during this year's Dragon Ball Heroes campaign. The INT female warrior in black is brand new, and the STR Towa is getting her EZA. So we're going to go over these guys and try to figure this out. So let's start with the INT female warrior in black. So she does lead crossover for 50%, pretty standard for a free-to-play unit, but you're probably not running her as lead. Her super attack effect does stack for 3 turns and cause supreme damage, so that's a 50% raise for 3 turns. On her passive, she has an additional 150% and an additional 100% attack and defense when performing a super attack. She gives all allies key 2 and attack and defense 30%. She has a great chance of performing a critical hit and an additional attack and defense 150% when the character is the only crossover category character on the team. She also has an additional attack defense 30% with each attack performed up to 120% and launches 2 additional attacks, each of which has a medium, that's a 30% chance of becoming a super attack when there's another crossover ally on the team. She also has an attack and defense 86% for the character and allies, who include Yamcha, and randomly changes key spheres of a certain type to INT key spheres at the start of the attacking turn when there's an Earthbred Fighter's ally attacking in the same turn. Then, so they kind of did something interesting with her. They gave her 2 passives, basically. One passive is when she's the only crossover ally, and the other when she is on crossover team. This is kind of what they said they were going to do with the Heroes units this year, is just basically make them so they have a viable running strategy off of Heroes. And honestly, in order to get this girl to her max effectiveness, you do need to run her off Heroes, right? Because you want her to have that Earthbred Fighters and that Yamcha ability, right? Because that extra 86% could be really, really helpful. Now, realistically, the only way to do that, right? You're not going to run her on crossover Heroes in order to make the Yamcha happen, right? You're not going to run her on Time Travelers because Yamcha's not on Time Travelers. So your 2 options are Peppy Gals and tournament participants. You could use one of the World Tournament Yamchas in order to make that happen, or more likely, you can use Peppy Gals, right? And Peppy Gals through Roshi is how I'm envisioning this, right? You have Roshi, who has the Peppy Gals lead, but also leading Turtle School, which gives you access to the Yamchas that are on Turtle School. That's kind of the way I see that working, in order to make her at her most effectiveness. And honestly, she's pretty good for a non-EZA free-to-play unit, right? If we look at her stats here, right, as the only crossover ally, right, she's got about 600k defense, but then she gets fully built up, and she can get up to 1,000,000 defense, and then if you have Yamcha, she gets 1.3, and if you're lucky and you build her additional, she can get up to 1.4 with 40% support. So that's kind of crazy. It's actually really good for a free-to-play unit, but at the end, you know, she's still a free-to-play unit, and 1.4 million is not surviving. It'll survive most normals, in fact, unless you don't proc the additionals, in which case you're sitting around, you know, 800 maybe, so depending on if you have Yamcha on the turn. So it could depend, which kind of leads us to the default for free-to-play units, right? She is an INT type, which means her default is evasion, right? She has 5 dodge built in, and if you go full evasion, she's gonna be getting an extra 20% chance to dodge, right? Which basically means, you know, 20 from nothing. So for her, honestly, I would say that I don't make this recommendation often, but I do think because she has built-in additionals and as a free-to-play unit, she's not really going to be dealing that much damage. The choice is evasion up to 20%, 30% if you go with the hidden potential orbs, and then the rest into additional attack or into critical hit. You can go additional attack, which would kind of sort of help reach this higher end of the defense spectrum for her, right? Reaching that 1.4 million, which will definitely help her out. Or you can go crit to make up for when not being the only crossover, right? Because to hit her bigger defense numbers, she's probably going to need to be on crossover. So you could go crit to forego that, because if you don't do that, she has no crit chance, right? She's only got the crit if she's the only crossover, so you got to be careful with that. So that's kind of how that's how I envision her working, just kind of being there, floating support, dodging, and then launching a couple attacks with her hidden potential additionals is kind of the way I see it going for her. Of course, this could change. She is a free-to-play unit. They may adjust this passive a little bit, but they usually don't adjust it too much. But it could end up being that this stack lasts longer, and in which case you may, like 6 or 9 turns, right? In which case you may want to consider going more into the additional route instead, which would also, of course, increase her overall defense when she EZAs. And she definitely looks like she might be EZAing soon. She isn't farmable from an event, right? She's given out via missions, and the missions actually give you 19 copies of her, which is enough for full rainbow, plus an extra 5 for an EZA super attack effect. So I'm almost positive she's probably going to EZA by the end of this celebration. So, you know, you could hold on to the dupes and wait and see if they change it, but I mean, it's not going to change too much from what you see here. Which brings us to the EZA unit we have here, the STR TOWA. So upon EZA, she is heroes for 77% and STR types for 50%. She's greatly raising attack and defense for the turn and causing supreme damage. She has attack and defense 200% and an additional attack and defense 150% when performing a super attack. There's a 50% chance of evading enemies' super attack as the second or third attacker in a turn, and an additional chance of evading enemies' attack, including super attack 5% up to 15% with each attack evaded, which means she can get right from 50 up to 65 chance to dodge. She also gives allies 30% attack and defense when there are 3 or more extreme allies on the team, and 15% for 2 turns after she has evaded 3 or more attacks in battle when there are another 3 extreme class. So 2-turn support, right? So 15% for 2 turns, 30% normally. She also has an additional attack and defense 100% when performing a super attack, and gives allies key 2 and attack and defense 20%, and changes AGL key spheres to STR when allies are heroes or crossover. So on the crossover team, she is supporting for 30%, 50%, 65% when on the heroes team, provided she's dodged 3 times, right? And of course that is a 2-turn support, so that is the 15% is 2 turns, but you know, the rest of the team getting, or the rest of the rotation getting the 65 is actually kind of good. So really powerful unit, and you know, it all kinds of adds up, everything she's doing, right? No crazy amount of additionals or anything, but with just 2 attacks, she's got 2.5 million defense with what's happening there. So given that, I would have to say for her hidden potential, right, you do want to maximize that defense. You do want to go into the additional routes, right, to maximize her defense. So as a STR unit, she actually more leans towards crit, but you don't really need her for the damage. So I would personally go, right, because she gets a lot from her dodging, and she does have quite a good chance of dodging, I would definitely go additional attack, investing full additionals to get up to a 50% chance, right? She can get, or I'm sorry, up to a 40% chance. She can get 30% as an STR type, which means all you need to do is give her some skill orbs and get that up to 40%, which would be really good for her. To proc that additional, and then you can go the rest, either critical hit, which again she's not going to need, she's not going to be the big damage dealer on her hero's team, or evasion, which would help her get her build up through evading further attacks. So Either one works. I definitely think combo evasion is probably the best choice, though. So once again, for both units, right, for her, dodge and additionals, dodge being the priority since she has no built-in, and then for Towa additionals, then dodge to help her maximize her offense and defense. So guys, that is how to build the Towa and the female warrior in black. If you guys like the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And in the comments down below, let us know how did you build your INT female warrior in black and your STR TOWA. Are you waiting to see if one of them easy days? Let us know what you did in the comments down below. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching and aloha.